And yet, another dream of mine has come true, visiting South Tyrol and the Dolomites. I've wanted to come here since I saw my first photograph of these mountains many years ago. And now being here for a few days, I can say it's honestly everything I dreamed of and more. I mean, look at this trail I get to walk every single day to go into the village, passing by all these different farm animals. I mean, it is just so serene and peaceful here, and everyone is so kind. I can't wait to show you guys more of what I've been exploring here, but today I want to talk about the fact that yes, I am definitely not saving 80% of my income this month. And yet, I feel far richer than the months that I do. How could this be? Well, this all began when I was visiting my friend Maddie in his studio. We recorded a podcast together and then spent the rest of the day chatting about YouTube, money, and life. And he recommended 2 books to me that just blew me away. 4,000 Weeks and Die with Zero. Remember in Good Will Hunting when he's talking about reading a book that just blows your hair back? Well, 4,000 Weeks definitely did that for me. The premise of this book is that the average human lifespan is about 4,000 weeks. And for much of that time, we aren't really present. We aren't really experiencing our life as it passes us by. Instead, we are constantly preparing for the future. When we're kids, we're in school preparing for the next round of school, which we then prepare for going into the workforce and so on. But where do we actually stop and mindfully experience our lives? This really struck me because for the past several years of my life, I have been so fixated on the future and these goals that I wanted to achieve, and that definitely served me to a large degree. But I fear it has ultimately come at a cost of not always being fully there to experience the present moment that is constantly passing me by. So I wanted to change that, and I knew that part of this meant further developing the relationship that I have with my money. That's where Die with Zero comes in. Because whereas 4,000 Weeks gave me a big bird's eye view perspective shift, Die with Zero gave me the practical insights to use my money as a tool to fully experience the breadth of life. That's because the premise of this book, as you may have guessed, is that we should seek to die with $0 in our bank account. You know, it's funny. Once I began my life on my own, away from the nest and everything, my dad has since always said to me, "Steve, we'll support you emotionally, just not financially." That's because I think he intends to die with zero and, not really leave me or my brother anything. And I think he should. I fully support that. But the lessons from this book are so much more than just that simple title. And I'd like to explore my favorite ones with you today. When we think about our lives, we usually think about it as having only one end, and hopefully very far in the future. But what this book really opened my eyes to is that we actually have several end points to our lives, the closing of chapters, if you will. For example, when you're a kid, life is very different than when you're an adult. There's generally way less responsibility and much more time allocated to having fun. But when you reach a more mature age, say something like 25, there's a stark difference. The life of the child is unfortunately no more, and it's never going to return. This happens once again as we get into our 30s and 40s, as families start to form and responsibilities really begin to mount. So the cold hard truth of all of this is there are certain things that you just can't do anymore once you reach a certain age. Take this trip, for example. I would not be here hiking up the mountains and doing all that kind of stuff if I was 90 years old, as much as I would like to believe that I would be. Well, actually, my granny, who's going to be 100 this year, she still lifts little weights, I think, and she's still sharp as a whip, so who knows? But the main point I got from this is, if you don't do certain things at certain times in your life, you may never get to do them at all. That's why I decided to spend the money to be here right now. I'm sure many of you are familiar with a dividend, right? A payment you receive in return for holding shares of a company. But are you familiar with the memory dividend? The memory dividend is a concept whereby the experiences you have in your life will then turn into memories, and then these memories will then be with you for the rest of your life and will enrich your life in the future. There's a common phrase which has a lot of different variations, but the gist of it is, a person is the sum total of their experiences. Whatever has passed through your consciousness since you've been alive, whether that be a thought, an emotion, an experience, an action, this truly is the sum total of what you are today. And because we have this beautiful ability to retrieve and relive past experiences, we can call moments of our lives back to us. And these moments become more valuable over time as we can continue to look back on them. In the same way, shares of a company might appreciate over time. Imagine yourself in your old age, sitting in a nice little rocking chair, maybe sipping some tea or knitting a scarf. What do you think you'll be thinking about? Hopefully, many of the beautiful experiences you've had across your life as they continue to pay out dividends as you watch them in the interiors of your consciousness. Now, a reasonable objection to the idea of dying with zero could be, well, hang on a second. What if I wanted to give money away to charity or leave some money for an inheritance? The book counters this objection with a very good point. Should we not give money away when it can do the most good? For example, instead of keeping money set aside for an inheritance when you pass away, which your kids might receive at the time that they themselves are already getting older, would it not be more impactful to, say, spend the money on something like a shared experience with your children, or to help them get an education or just pursue their life's path? And instead of allowing your philanthropy to occur after you're already gone, wouldn't it be better to personally oversee exactly how your money is being directed to the causes that you care about? Just recently, the founder of Patagonia, a brand which Justine and I are big stans of, as you can see. Actually, I think Justine's wearing hers too. The founder decided to give away his entire ownership of the whole company. It was a private company, meaning that him and his family owned the entire thing. He donated the entire ownership of the company for philanthropic purposes. It's a really cool story. There's a ton of interesting details about it, and honestly, maybe I'll make a video about it because I think it's that cool. But the point is, it's an excellent example of someone giving in the way that they want to before they are gone, and in a way that it makes the most impact. Let me ask you a question. So I'm spending a certain amount of money traveling now, right? Well, let's say I spent the exact same amount of money on a trip when I'm, say, 55. At which age do you think I would have the most enjoyable trip? Probably this one right now, right? Backpacking across Europe for an extended period of time is not exactly something that would be particularly friendly towards creaky knees and not great cardio, not to mention the memory dividend that I would receive by the time I'm 55 if I took the trip now. So this was another important lesson from the book. The fact that our ability to extract joy from our money declines with age. And so for these reasons that I've shared with you today, coupled with a lot of the things that I've been talking about lately in my videos, I am so happy to be here right now, even though it costs me a resource that I've been meticulously careful with. For these reasons, I too plan to die with zero.